Welcome to 1202, the Human Factors Podcast. The podcast that covers all things about humans, technology, and particularly the bit in between.
And welcome to this new episode of 1202, the Human Factors Podcast. This episode is one I've been wanting to put together for a while, and it's taken a bit of time to get together, mainly because of calendars and all this sort of stuff. But I don't think I'm wrong in saying this has taken over a year to get together. But I'm really pleased that we are talking about it, because what we're talking about today is looking about how human factors can transfer across different domains and how we can make that work. And really, this is out of all the people I could talk to around this, today's guest is somebody who's worked in a wide variety of domains and really quite a varied type of background. So I'm really pleased to have Filip Florek join us today. Filip, welcome, and thank you for joining us in the podcast.
Hey, hi, Barry, and thank you for having me here.
Yeah, I was just saying, it's taken us a while to get here, but I'm very pleased that we've finally managed to get it together. For everybody else, then, could you give us a bit of an insight on what is your current role? What do you do for a day job?
Oh, of course, yeah. So in my day-to-day work, I'm a principal human factors specialist in Irish Rail, based in Dublin, in Ireland. And my day-to-day job is related to the integration of human factors into the safety management, in specifically in terms of the change management. So what I do on daily basis, I'm in my human factors capacity. I'm directly involved in capital investment projects like new trains, new rolling stock, line electrifications, depots, all those big things.
Cool. So, like a lot of people, I always find it really interesting to find out how people got involved in human factors in the first place, because we all seem to come into this in many, many different ways. What was your origin? How did you find out about human factors in the first place?
Well, this is actually a funny story, because we have to go back a bit. So after my graduation, so I'm originally graduated from industrial automation and robotic engineering a long time ago. So that was in early 2000s. I did a lot of work related to the software development, embedded systems. Started with embedded systems, didn't got much traction because of the recession back in the day. I started doing a lot of internet stuff, websites, database systems, stuff like that. And what's really very quickly came to me was the fact that who actually gonna use it? How are people gonna use it? Is it what they really need, want, and are they able to use it? So I started to explore those aspects. I got more into the design, and one of my first serious jobs is, and this was happened sort of like an accident. I was a new product introduction engineer, NPI engineer for common term. And I got assigned to the production line, and my primary job was to improve production capacity. And then I started to look into the how production line is organized and how can this be optimized. And very quickly it got into the human element. How can we improve the speed of operators on the production line? And I ended up either designing or procuring an equipment, testing equipment that was far better in usability terms. I started to look into organization of the stations based on environmental factors like lighting, thermal conditions and stuff like that. And the funny bit, what I say with this is, at that time, I didn't even know that phrase human factor exists. Consciously I was doing stuff. I then 10, 15 years later I was getting into very much. So that was a bit like a beginning for me.
So when was it you actually recognized the term human factors? When did you first hear it and think, oh, that's what I've been doing?
Yeah, so I was that was about 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And I was, again, at that time, I was very much into UX design, service design. I was working for international companies. And, like everything what was inside of me, always wanted to go into more and more physical stuff, design physical things. And I found this job advert that was actually SpaceX back in the day, and they were looking for a human factor specialist. And I was like, okay,
Right.
who is human factor specialist? And started, to look at the job description. Everything sounded so familiar, but the phrase itself wasn't familiar for me. Bear in mind one thing, Barry, that I'm originally from Poland.
Mm-hmm.
And when I graduated and I did my engineering degree and everything, we didn't have popularized terms, English terms for certain things. Ergonomics was well established sort of the term, and I had like a rough understanding of what does it mean, and what does it do. So when I moved over to Ireland now nearly 15 years ago, I started to apply more and more, specialized knowledge, especially considering English language. This is how I started knowing this term.
Cool. So since then, what's been? Because I know you've worked for like a number of different sectors and companies. What's been that career path? What's been the stepping points?
Good question. Well, my career path is very, very twisted, and no regrets at all. It's just a journey, and how I like to see it. It started, like I said, software development. It wasn't necessarily for me, and more into design. And I think that the stepping stone for me, like a sort of revelation, was I was working back in the day. Was working in RTE. That's the national broadcaster in Ireland. And I got the job offer from Ryanair, and this was like a stepping stone for me into the UX world, like a serious UX world of designing stuff. And then a job came in McLaren in the UK. And this was the huge impact for me in terms of human factors. This is how the serious journey of human factors actually started.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And so since McLaren, then where have you been since? Because there's another couple of steps in between McLaren and where you are now, isn't there?
Yeah, it was. So McLaren, then that was Arrival, startup in the UK, electric vehicles. Then I took a sabbatical to complete my second master's degree, and then I decided to go back to Ireland. And when you Google, let's put it this way, when you Google in LinkedIn jobs, human factors in the UK, where in Ireland, in Europe, you get like, number of options. In Ireland, you're lucky if you get two. So,
right, yeah.
So Irish Rail was having this opening, and Nora Balf, we met, we knew each other before, and I was aware about this opening, and I got the job in Ireland.
Fantastic. Well, I think that obviously beautifully qualifies you for what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to get into around these transferable skills and how HF goes across sectors. So we'll be back in a moment.
Are listening to 1202, the Human Factors podcast. We wanted to take the opportunity to say thank you for your support. You can help further by rating us through your podcast provider, sharing us through social media, and telling your friends and colleagues. Let's work together in raising awareness of the value in putting users at the center of what we do.
And welcome back to this episode of the podcast. I'm here with Filip Florek, where we're talking about human factors, but the transferability of human factors across domains. So But someone you've worked in several different sectors for a number of different companies. How easy have you found it to move from either company to company or from sector to sector?
Well, there's not straightforward answer. Let's put it this way. It's doable, and it's it to the point in the direction you go. Okay, in many cases I found myself not much challenge beyond just learning new working environment.
Hmm.
But since my involvement as a human factor specialist is in more sectors where safety is essential, it can become a bit of a challenge for somebody who didn't work in that sector before. So you enter a new environment, you meet new people, all those great stuff that we know, from our own experiences. But it's about managing your expectations. You have to know where you're stepping into, and you need to take a time actually to process this and get used to the new environment. So yes, in short, yeah, it's absolutely doable.
So that time that it almost sounds like you need like a sync time or an immersion time and so is that to, I guess, learn the new terminology and things like that, or is it just to learn this new environment and what you're working in?
Well, it's a bit of both. It's always like we take our time, just to get familiar with the surroundings. We find our bearing, find our feet, and within the new organization. But there's also those background details, and again, what your expectation or objectives are, for long-term engagement, which is my case, and I can speak, from my own experience. I really, really love, being immersed by the new workplace, new environment. So, going into background knowledge, learning something new. That's what's going in there. It's what you say about those regulations, ways of working, processes. That's within those sectors. This is how I found moving from banking sector to automotive relatively challenging, and then moving from automotive to railway wasn't that challenging, although it had its own a challenging points, even now after a long while in Irish Rail. I can say that it took me nearly 1 year to get fully familiar with a way of working, how railways operate.
Yeah. Yes, because I guess that there is an entirely different context to how you're dealing with a car and the particular issues with that with rail, because you're working with different people in such a different way. But what were those core skills? Would you say that there's a set of core skills or core abilities or just some things that you've used no matter what the sector and have become relevant? So
Yeah. I would say it's maybe not necessarily human factor skill in general. It's your curiosity, okay? So it have to drive you, okay? But going more and more concrete on this, I think I definitely can list probably 3 things that goes regardless you go, okay? And if your background is engineering, if your background is UX, and you want to move into more safety related environments, first is understanding user needs. So writing requirements, it goes across the board actually. No matter where you work, you have to know who you're dealing with. It's quite essential, and it's easily transferable. Methods and processes are quite similar. Documentation formats may be different. Second thing I would consider quite essential would be ability to do assessments, either formative or summative. It's either discovering new things or testing prototypes or validating, almost end product before commissioning to service or racing to production. It's cool. It's really must have. But again, you can learn different methods. You can for help, right? But you definitely, if you have the skill set and experience, even limited experience, definitely this will enable you to do to transfer across sectors. And the last things I think are very important is a very important skill, and is report writing. So
Yeah.
we know it's a not very, I wouldn't call it very entertaining job, but over years, especially in this kind of jobs that I do now, it's quite critical to capture your work and translate your word across, and it's this part sometimes, that we have to critique somebody else's work, but you also provide recommendations, how to improve things, how to fix things. Somebody asked for our help, so we just give it to them.
Yeah, that's cool. So, what was you said there was difficulties and stuff, but what was the most challenging aspect about picking up from the banking sector and chucking yourself into automotive and then into rail? What was the biggest challenges?
Well, the most challenging was hard to say, to be honest with you, because like I said, the challenge was to find yourself in the new environment, pick what is important, what is less important for you. I usually start with mid-low level tasks, just to find myself fit within the organization. That was a time where you need to learn a new language, sort of. There is a certain level of regulation standards, especially from the engineering perspective. But in many cases is when you move over where the position of human factors is not well established. It is within the organization, but it's not well established. This is doubling your efforts, to get into the new place and establish yourself as a subject matter expert, and ultimately, to help to drive forward, right? So those kind of aspects I would find very much challenging on the way.
So to flip that the other side, then what's been the most fun? What's been the
Oh
most?
well, the most fun, I would say, definitely I'm calling this testing. Like
Yes.
you see, Barry, it's I won't be anybody new in this matter, but the fact that you can go into places that not many people actually can go to
Right.
do your work, paid work. It's extremely rewarding fun.
Cool. So what's been the most I guess interesting trial you've done then? What piece of assessment have you done that you've just been, I really thoroughly enjoyed that?
Well, if I can only, put a single batch on this, let's put this way, testing, evaluating certain aspects in the train cab, driving with a train driver, 100 miles per hour. That's a unique experience,
Yeah.
or being in the middle of the runway, that is international airport, in the middle of the day, just standing on it. That was quite unique experience, not mention, driving high performance car on the test track. So you see, I just cannot put one grade on something, because it's so unique experiences. I enjoy thoroughly each one of them.
Brilliant. No, I love that. So if somebody else was looking to move sectors almost in the same way you have, or just thinking about looking outside of their own domain, what piece of advice would you give them?
Well, you see, this is the thing. I would say this is very subjective. So if you want anybody who is listening, want to take a piece of advice from me, it's always about your objectives? What is your goal? What drives you to move over? In my case, it's always about commitment, about learning new things. You're reaching the point in your career, you decide, okay, I move on. You make a conscious decision. Where do you want to go? Is it your passion? Is it your interest? Or maybe an opportunity for other reasons that drives you. So you go there, especially if you want to learn more background stuff. If in my case, my driver is a passion for and love for everything with wheels or with wings. I'm just mad about this. I just love this stuff. So there are certain sectors that are not for me, and be honest with yourself and acknowledge this. And sometimes you just look for opportunities, and if you find it, just go for it. Embrace yourself with this, and then make this step. So I would say find objectives that drives you. Find this place you want to work with, and then look for your commitments along the way.
Awesome. That's been really insightful. Thank you. We're going to take a final quick break, and then we'll come back with the final three.
It's to the final three. My name's Nick Rome. Let me tell you about this. Technology in our world is evolving at a phenomenal pace, and keeping up with what that means in the human factors world can be challenging. That's where Human Factors Cast comes in. Human Factors Cast is a weekly podcast that highlights and breaks down stories that are chosen by you, the Human Factors community.
New York State is giving out hundreds of robots as companions for the elderly.
Buttons in cars are safer and quicker to use than touchscreen.
A prototype just achieved a major milestone that actually fits the description of a flying car.
The show provides perspective based on experiences from different domains and different industries. We even cover some of the hottest conferences in the field. On this episode, we're recapping EHF, Ergonomics and Human Factors Conference, Neuroergonomics Conference, Human Factors and Ergonomics Society, UXPA International. Join me, Nick Rome.
And me, Barry Kirby.
Every Friday morning when Human Factors Cast drops on YouTube and your favorite podcast directory. And remember,
it depends.
And now I'm going to send it back over to Barry for the final three.
And we're back here for the final three. So these are the same three questions we ask everybody who comes on as a guest. So your first one is, do you have a particular book or a paper or anything that you basically go back to and read time and time and time again? It could be a technical book or it could be a work of fiction.
Well, Barry, again, and this is a me problem is I cannot put a single grade on something. So the short answer is it depends. If this is work related stuff, yes, I do have one particular book I actually like to work with and go back just for a very single reason, just to remind myself how cool things I do, what cool stuff I work on, it is where I go and look back at this quite old school human scale ergonomic charts. Mm-hmm. Many of us probably heard about that. So a few years ago, I bought the reproduction of all 9 books designed by Henry Dreyfus. It's just an amazing piece of a physical manuscript of all ergonomics related stuff. I strongly recommend for everybody. And if it's not work related, I would say every next book is great book for me, and I usually read books, about engineering history, military stuff, all sorts of things.
Cool. So if you went back in time and went back to a suitable point in your life, what advice would you give your younger self?
Well, first advice would be just don't think so seriously. Just for Christ's sake, have a bit of fun from what you do. I just look myself, in the lens of history, and I see myself, doing stuff, and then seeing, oh wow, that was cool, that was fantastic test I did, or I was working on fantastic project, or where was the fun of it, So that would be one thing, and the other thing would be probably good is better than perfect. that's probably very serious advice I would give to myself.
Okay, that sounds that sounds really good. And then fast forward a whole bunch of years from now, when you come to retire, what would you like to be remembered for?
Oh God. Well, let's be honest. Okay, human factors are a bit of like hidden figures. I highly doubt that anybody will know or remember Filip, who designed the HMI for the McLaren, or improved train desk layout. But I personally think that I really like to be remembered for would be my positivity toward my attitude. I think that's the strong thing that I would be like to remember for.
Brilliant. Filip, thank you ever so much for sharing your history and your thoughts around moving across sectors. If people would like to get in touch with you, how would they go about doing so?
Well, I think the best way is to find me on LinkedIn. I quite active there, and I always try to respond on messages, in time. So that would be the best way.
Brilliant. So thank you, Filip, and also thank you wherever you're consuming this episode from. So if you're listening to it, if you're watching it, thank you ever so much for taking that time. Do like and comment and share wherever you're picking it up. If you want to ask questions, if you want to ask queries about what you've heard, please put it down there, and we'll get you some sort of answer. But for now, we shall see you all on the next episode.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you for listening to 1202, the Human Factors Podcast. Please do get in touch with your thoughts, questions, and comments. You can contact us on social media such as Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook at 1202 Podcast. See you next time. And remember, it's more than just common sense.